Dear listener, I sincerely wish you happiness, love, and prosperity, just like you would wish for someone dear to you. If my story touches your heart, please subscribe to my channel. It means a lot to me, and it will only take a few seconds of your time. Recently, I took my kids to visit my parents in a neighboring town. My husband and I often talked on the phone, and he would say how much he missed us and was looking forward to our return. I decided to surprise him by coming home 2 days early to prepare a romantic dinner and spend some quality time together, rekindling the warmth and joy of our family life. As I approached our house, my heart was filled with warmth and anticipation. But then, something caught my eye that made my heart stop. A taxi pulled up to our house, and 2 young, attractive women stepped out. My heart froze, and a sense of dread washed over me. I immediately called my husband, and he told me he was at the office and waiting for us at home. But from across the street, I saw him letting those strangers into our house. As I got closer to the house, I felt a growing sense of anxiety mixed with an inexplicable pain. The daylight streaming through the windows cast soft shadows that seemed to amplify the feeling of inevitable betrayal. With each passing second, my inner calm gave way to a storm of emotions. I went upstairs, where I could hear muffled voices, laughter, and soft moans. Every sound pierced through my consciousness like a harbinger of impending disaster. As I approached the bedroom door, time seemed to slow down. The door was slightly ajar, and in that moment, I saw an unbearable sight. My husband, Andrei, was in the arms of 2 unfamiliar women. The bright daylight flooded the room, casting sharp shadows on the walls and highlighting the unnaturalness of the scene. The air was filled with a strange mix of foreign perfumes, tears, and the bitter scent of betrayal. My emotions swirled into a storm of anger, pain, fear, and betrayal. My eyes darted around the room, fixating on every detail as if searching for a glimpse of what was once our happiness. Involuntarily, my hand reached into my purse and I pulled out a small pepper spray, a symbol of my impulsive desire for revenge. My hand trembled, ready to release the venom that could stop this nightmare in an instant. But at the last moment, a spark of inner strength held me back. Could I really destroy everything that once bound us together? Andrei, how could you? I growled, my voice filled with pain and bitter regret. His eyes, filled with fear and despair, met mine, but there was no trace of the warmth that once warmed our souls. One of the women looked up at me, her gaze cold and indifferent, devoid of any sympathy. This was a mistake. He tried to justify himself, his voice trembling as if every word was a struggle. I was lonely when you were gone. It was just a moment of weakness, a biological need. His words sounded hollow, like an echo of lost faith in us. I felt a conflicting storm inside me. The desire to destroy everything clashed with a quiet hope that we could salvage what was left of our life. My thoughts raced between the urge for immediate revenge and the painful attempt to forgive, even though my heart screamed otherwise. At that moment, I realized the full weight of betrayal. Every sound, every shadow, every scent seemed filled with pain and loss. I quietly asked, unable to hold back my tears, why? Why did you destroy everything we built together? In response, there was only a painful silence, broken only by the sound of my rapid breathing. I stood on the edge between a burning desire for revenge and the understanding that true strength lies in the ability to endure pain and find a path to healing. In that moment, a thought flashed through my mind like a spark. How I wish I could take revenge on him, show him that I can crush his world right before his eyes. That hook, that vivid image of revenge, was meant to keep you, dear listener, engaged, because soon you'll find out how I plan to do it. But deep down, I knew that true revenge isn't about destruction, but about overcoming pain and finding the strength to move forward. In the end, though the thought of punishing him right before his eyes tempted me, I realized I couldn't destroy what was once called our love. That realization became the first step toward a new life. That day marked the beginning of a long, difficult journey I had to take to rediscover myself, understand my fears and doubts, and find the strength to forgive not only him, but also myself. Every second, every sound, every scent would forever remain in my memory, reminding me of how quickly an entire world can collapse when trust is betrayed. Stay with me, dear listener. In the next parts, I'll tell you how it all began, about the quiet, almost imperceptible moments of happiness that preceded that fateful day, about the struggle with inner fears, and about finding myself in the labyrinth of pain and hope. And though at that moment I thought about taking revenge on him right before his eyes, in the end, I realized that such revenge wasn't for me. My soul isn't capable of destroying what once united us. After that fateful day, I left the house, unable to bear the weight of betrayal any longer. The days that were once filled with quiet harmony and understanding now seemed like an illusion, a fleeting dream that had suddenly turned into a nightmare. Fragments of memories flashed through my mind, how it all began, when our mornings were filled with tenderness and our evenings with promises of the future. I remember the first time we met. It was a spring day, and the sunlight filtered through the trees, making every sound, the chirping of birds, the rustling of leaves, seem like the music of fate. I was young and full of hope, and in that moment when our eyes met, I felt that our meeting wasn't accidental. Andre and I dreamed of a big future, and I believed that our bond would be unbreakable. Every day together was like a quiet celebration, late-night conversations, the laughter of our children, caring for each other. But as it turned out, even the strongest tree can crack under the weight of fate. Now, in the silence of my new reality, I often find myself returning to those times. I remember how we used to cook breakfast together, his careful, almost tender movements in the kitchen, how he helped me slice fruit, smiling as if promising that the day would be special. Every sound, every detail was filled with warmth and sincerity, and I allowed myself to dream that this fire would never die. But today, walking through the familiar hallways, I felt a cold emptiness creeping into my heart. Every corner of our house seemed filled with echoes of lost intimacy. I couldn't understand where the crack had begun, how everything had started to fall apart. Maybe it was those little things I hadn't noticed before. The missed glances, the short answers to my questions, the moments of silence when I sought support in his eyes, but found only detachment. In my solitude, I tried to make sense of my feelings. During the day, when light filtered through the curtains, every speck of dust seemed to reflect my pain. I often woke up early in the morning when the world was still wrapped in the gentle haze of sleep, and felt like every passing minute was a battle between the past and the present. My mind screamed, "Why?" But my heart answered with a silence louder than any words. In those moments, I would sit on the old couch in the living room, hugging a pillow as if it could give me a fraction of the lost warmth. I listened to the rain tapping on the roof and imagined each drop was a tear falling from my broken heart. Inside, I was boiling with conflicting emotions: anger, pain, the desire to forget, and at the same time, the fear of losing the memories that had been dear to me for years. A few days after that fateful day, I met with my old friend Marina. We sat in a cozy cafe where the hum of conversation and the soft light of the lamps created an intimacy that could warm even the coldest soul. "You've changed, Olga," Marina said quietly, looking down at her hands. "I can see something in you has dimmed. What happened?" Her words awakened a bitter realization in me. I tried to find the words to describe the inexplicable emptiness that now lived inside me. "You know, Marina, sometimes I think love is something fragile, like glass, and one crack can destroy everything. I believed in our bond, in our dreams for so long. And suddenly, it turned out that it was all an illusion, something that could be shattered so easily." Marina took my hand, and her touch was like a quiet, comforting whisper. "Don't blame yourself, Olga. Sometimes we just can't see what's going on inside another person. You deserve more. You deserve love that doesn't cause pain." Those words, spoken with such sincerity, made me think. Yes, maybe I had held on to the image of perfect love for too long, not noticing that at its core lay insecurity and the fear of losing myself. But how can you forgive betrayal when everything you loved turns out to be a lie? In the days that followed, I began to slowly pick up the pieces of my soul. First, I went into a long-abandoned room where old photos and letters were stored, evidence of past happy moments. The dusty light filtering through the windows seemed to try to bring back those long-forgotten days. I sat for hours, sifting through memories, trying to find a spark that could light my way through the darkness. Each photo told its own story. The laughter of our children, cozy family holidays, moments when Andre and I seemed inseparable. But at the same time, I saw how time had left its mark. Smiles became rare, and conversations became superficial. Maybe I had gradually distanced myself too, forgetting how important it was to keep the fire alive in our relationship. Remembering this, I realized that it wasn't just him. I, too, with my actions and insecurities, had played a part in destroying what had seemed eternal. One day, returning home after a long walk in the park, where I had sought answers in the rustling leaves and the quiet songs of birds, I heard a child's voice. It was my youngest son, who ran up to me with an innocent smile and asked, "Mom, why are you so sad? What happened?" His voice, full of genuine concern, made me forget my pain for a moment and feel the love that was so natural and pure. I hugged him tightly, as if trying to absorb a bit of his innocent warmth. "Everything will be okay, my little one," I whispered, trying to believe my own words, even though a storm was raging inside me. Sometimes things happen in life that we can't understand, but I promise I'll find a way." Those words, spoken through tears, became a kind of vow. A vow not to let pain overshadow the love that still remained within me. If even a small voice could awaken tenderness in me, then there must still be a spark of hope in my soul. Days turned into nights, and nights into long hours of reflection. In every moment, I was faced with questions I couldn't answer. How can you forgive something that destroys everything that seemed eternal? Maybe forgiveness isn't about forgetting, but about freeing yourself, allowing yourself to believe in the light again despite the dark spots of the past. In moments when the pain seemed unbearable, I remembered Marina's words that made me think, forgiveness isn't weakness, it's the strength of the soul. I realized that revenge, even if it tempted me with its fiery allure, wouldn't bring back what was lost. It would only deepen the wounds that were so hard to heal. And though at one point I dreamed of taking revenge on him right before his eyes, that thought gradually faded as I realized my strength lies in the ability to let go and move forward. I started writing down my thoughts in a journal, as if trying to lay out the complex mosaic of emotions that overwhelmed me. Each entry was filled with pain, hope, doubt, and a quiet belief that even after the worst storm, you can find a path to peace and acceptance. One night, as the moonlight illuminated my modest study, I sat at my desk and asked myself, Olga, how will you find the strength to forgive? This betrayal has changed you forever. Silence answered me, as if the universe itself was silent in that moment. I remembered those days when every gesture, every glance was filled with love. Now, all I saw were reflections of what was lost. But deep down, I felt that if I could forgive, maybe I could find myself again. My true essence, the one that had always known how to love, no matter what. I understood that the path to forgiveness isn't a straight, quick line. It's a winding road filled with sharp stones and unexpected turns. And every step on that path required courage. My heart already knew pain, and now I had to learn to live with that pain, turning it into a lesson, a strength that could bring back lost peace. Several weeks passed, filled with quiet reflection and long walks through the autumn park, where every rustle of fallen leaves seemed like an echo of my past. One day, I found myself on a small bridge over a river, where the lights of the evening city reflected in the clear water. There, I stopped and allowed myself to cry. The tears, mixed with the cold wind, washed away the remnants of my pain, as if nature itself was helping me cleanse my soul. In that moment, something shifted inside me. I realized that despite everything that had happened, I couldn't let myself drown in bitterness and resentment. My strength wasn't in revenge, but in the ability to let go of what no longer belonged to me. I remembered how I once dreamed of a new life, full of light and possibilities. And I decided it was time to take the first step toward that future. When I returned home, I began to change. I stopped looking back at the past with bitterness and started looking toward the future with cautious hope. Every morning, I woke up early to enjoy the first rays of sunlight, which seemed to promise a new day, a new life. I spent more time with my children, trying to bring back the atmosphere of love and warmth that had once been our foundation. Slowly but surely I began to understand that the past was just a part of my journey, not its entirety. In every memory, even the most painful ones, there was a lesson that helped me grow stronger. And though the thought of revenge still flickered in my mind, I knew true victory lies in the ability to forgive and move forward, not letting pain define my future. Today, looking back, I realized that it was through those dark times that I found a strength I never knew I had. Every tear, every painful moment became the foundation for a new beginning. And I promised myself that I would never let the fear of betrayal rob me of my faith in love and my own worth. Now I know that true revenge isn't about destruction, but about rebirth. I didn't take revenge on him the way I once dreamed. I didn't crush his world before his eyes, because I realized my soul isn't capable of destroying what once united us. Instead, I chose the path of forgiveness, not for him, but for myself, for a future life filled with sincerity, respect, and a new love for myself. Dear listener, my story is far from over. In the next parts, I'll tell you how I began to rediscover myself, how I learned to find joy in the little things and see light even in the deepest shadows of the past. Let this chapter be a reminder. Even after the worst storm, you can find a path to healing if you give yourself a chance to believe in a new life. Stay with me, because there are still many unexplored roads ahead, and each one is a step toward finding inner peace and understanding that true happiness begins with self-love. After those long, painful weeks filled with inner turmoil and quiet tears, I, Olga, began to slowly pick up the pieces of my broken soul. It seemed like every new dawn brought not only cold light, but also a thin spark of hope that could warm even the most wounded corners of my heart. I understood that the path to healing wouldn't be straight or easy, and I would have to face the pain head-on to find the strength to move forward. One morning, as the first rays of sunlight played on the leaves of the old linden trees, I took a bold step. I signed up for a painting workshop. I had never thought I could express my feelings through paint and brushstrokes, but the desire to convey the pain that lay inside me was stronger than my fear. In a bright, cozy studio filled with the smell of solvent and the sound of quiet conversations, I immersed myself in the world of art. Every time I picked up a brush, I felt like I was diving into a sea of emotions. Bright red strokes expressed anger and pain, while soft shades of blue and green conveyed quiet sadness and a longing for peace. This creative therapy became a way for me not only to tell my story, but also to find a path to rebirth. I realized that through art, I could give voice to even my deepest emotions, transforming them into something beautiful and perhaps healing. On days when the pain was especially intense, I found solace in walks through the familiar streets of our city. Strolling through the parks, I observed how nature never forgets the past. Fallen leaves sparkled in the rain, whispering about the cycles of life and how even after the harshest winter, spring always comes. I sat on a bench under a large oak tree, listening to the birds singing and the rustling of the wind, and allowed myself to dream of a future where pain would give way to lightness and joy. In the evenings, when the children were fast asleep, I found the strength for long reflections. At the kitchen table, illuminated by the warm glow of a lamp, I kept a journal, writing down every thought and emotion that visited me in the quiet of the night. These writings became a bridge between my past and future, between pain and hope. I wondered how long I could hold on to my resentment when a whole world of new possibilities lay before me. Sometimes I remembered how, on that fateful day, I had stood at the bedroom door, on the verge of revenge, ready to crush his world before his eyes. But over time, I realized that true strength isn't in destruction, but in the ability to forgive and let go. One of the bright rays in this dark period was my meeting with Katya, an old friend who always knew how to listen and support. During our late-night conversations, which flowed like a gentle river, Katya shared stories of her own losses and victories, teaching me to find light even in the deepest shadows. Her words, simple and sincere, made me realize that I wasn't alone in my pain. She reminded me, sometimes we need to let go of the past to embrace the future with love. These conversations became a quiet refuge, a place where I could feel alive and needed again. One rainy day, as grey clouds covered the sky, I took shelter under the awning of a small bakery. There, I met Alexei, the owner, whose warm eyes and gentle smile immediately put me at ease. His stories of overcoming life's challenges and the resilience of the human spirit sparked a flicker of interest and trust in me. We talked, and I felt something new slowly blossoming in my soul, like the first rays of spring. Alexei spoke of how every storm eventually passes, and after the rain comes renewal. His words became a reminder that even in the darkest days, there are always glimpses of light. As time went on, I began to pay more attention to myself. I started reading books that had long gathered dust on the shelves, finding solace in poetry and philosophy, in the words of great thinkers who understood that pain is part of the journey to self-discovery. I took up yoga, learning to listen to my body and release tension. Every morning, in the quiet of dawn, I found moments for meditation, allowing my thoughts to drift away like a light mist and regaining my inner peace. At the same time, I began writing new chapters of my life, recording every small victory over my fears. My journal filled with entries about how I smiled again, laughed with my children, and gradually returned to myself. In those moments, I realized that true revenge isn't about destroying someone else's world, but about rebuilding your own. Despite all the wounds, I was learning to love life again, finding joy in the simple things, in each new day. But of course, the past didn't let go of me so easily. Sometimes, in the quiet nights when the city slept, memories of that fateful day returned with a renewed force. I remembered the moment I stood at the bedroom door, the emotions raging inside me, ready to tear apart everything that had once connected me to Andrei. And yet, in those nightly reflections, I increasingly came to the conclusion that revenge wasn't the path to healing. I thought about how I had wanted to take revenge on him right before his eyes, to show him that I could destroy his world. But with each passing day, with each new experience, that thought became less appealing. I understood that my strength wasn't in the ability to harm someone else, but in the ability to forgive and find the courage to start anew. Forgiveness turned out to be not a weakness, but an act of supreme strength. It didn't mean forgetting the pain or justifying the betrayal. It was a conscious choice to live for myself, not for someone else's mistakes. I began to understand that everyone deserves a second chance, and my path was one of rediscovery, of finding the true, unbroken woman within me who could love no matter what. With each passing day, I felt the past giving way to the new. The wounds were healing, leaving scars, but also a mark of a soul that had survived. I began to dream of a future where pain would be just one episode, not the defining factor of my life. I found the strength to return to work, expand my social circle, and even attend meetings where people shared their stories of overcoming adversity. Meeting others who had gone through similar trials gave me confidence. I wasn't alone, and for everyone, wounds could become the start of something new. I started taking self-development courses, learning to meditate and listen to the voice of my heart. Each new lesson, each encounter with wise mentors filled me with the belief that even after the deepest pain, you can find a path to healing. In these meetings, I learned to accept my emotions, not to judge myself for my weaknesses, but to see them as a path to inner strength and wisdom. Gradually, I began to realize that before seeking love in relationships with others, I needed to learn to love myself. I started spending more time on things that brought me joy: walks in nature, reading, creative pursuits, and simple but important moments of solitude. Each of these moments was a small victory over fear and pain, a small step toward becoming myself again. With each day spent in self-reflection and creativity, I felt a new strength awakening within me. I understood. I couldn't let someone else's betrayal define my worth or my future. My life was my choice, and though the wounds of the past still hurt, they couldn't take away my right to happiness. In these quiet victories, in every moment when I felt my heart filling with light, I realized that true rebirth begins with forgiving yourself and accepting who you are. Morning came, and I, hugging my children, stepped out into the fresh air. A gentle breeze played with my hair, and the sun's rays, breaking through the morning haze, illuminated our family breakfast. The laughter of my children sounded like music, and every glance from them reminded me that love, sincere and unconditional, was always close. These moments became proof to me that life can offer happiness even after the heaviest storm. "Mum, look how beautiful it is today," my youngest son exclaimed with delight, pointing to the bright sky and the dewdrops sparkling in the sunlight. "Yes, my dear, it's a new beginning," I replied, feeling each word fill me with warmth and confidence. I often think back to those days when I was consumed by a desire for revenge. There was a moment when the thought of taking revenge on him right before his eyes seemed like the only way out of the abyss of betrayal. But with each passing day, I understood more clearly. True strength isn't in destruction, but in the ability to forgive, let go, and find yourself again. Now, when I look at my reflection in the mirror, I see a woman who has been through the fire of trials, but has emerged stronger and wiser. The love for myself, which once seemed unattainable, now fills every cell of my being. I am grateful for every tear, for every pain, because they became stepping stones on the path to inner rebirth. On one sunny day, when I decided to visit a cozy cafe. Fate brought me a meeting I hadn't even dreamed of. There, I met Alexei, a man whose eyes radiated calm and understanding. His words, soft and sincere, like a gentle breeze, dispelled the last remnants of doubt and pain. "Olga, you're shining in a new way today," he said quietly as we sat by the window, where the sunlight played on our faces. "Thank you, Alexei," I replied, feeling my heart open to something new. "I've learned to forgive, not for others, but for myself. Now I know true revenge is a life filled with love and light." Each of our meetings became a small celebration, conversations about dreams, laughter, mutual understanding. I realized that life doesn't have to be filled with fiery flashes of anger. It can be quiet, kind, and surprisingly joyful. My home is now a place of harmony. Together with my children, we have little family celebrations, cook together, watch our favorite movies, and enjoy the simple joys of life. Every evening, as I tuck them into bed, I feel like I'm bringing back the love I once so desperately sought. The memories of the past, though they left scars, now serve as reminders of how much I am capable of loving and forgiving. I no longer strive to destroy someone else's world. My victory lies in the fact that I was able to build my own, filled with light, respect, and inner peace. Now, looking back, I understand. The path to happiness was long and difficult, but it made me the person I am today. Every hardship, every moment of doubt and pain was necessary for me to see the truth. True revenge isn't about destroying someone else's world, but about rebuilding your own. I found the strength to believe in the best, learned to love and value myself. My heart, once consumed by the fire of revenge, now beats calmly, filled with love for life and gratitude for every moment. I let go of the past, allowing it to become just a part of my journey, not its defining factor. Today, sitting with close friends, enjoying evening tea and light laughter, I realize happiness was never so far away. It has always been within me, in every decision, in every small step toward myself. And though I once dreamed of taking revenge on him right before his eyes, now I know that true triumph is the ability to love and be loved. Dear listener, my story is about how pain can turn into strength, how forgiveness can become the start of a new life. Let this happy ending be a reminder to you that even after the hardest trials, you can find a path to the light if you give yourself a chance to believe in love and your own worth. Thank you for walking this path with me. I hope my story inspires you to change, helps you see a little spark of happiness in every day, and reminds you the true strength of a person lies in the ability to love, forgive, and live a full, authentic life. A happy ending doesn't come when all wounds disappear, but when we learn to live with them, turning pain into wisdom and suffering into a new, bright path to ourselves.